Before we get started, a quick reminder that the BBC is a transphobic organization platforming people who are literally calling for the genocide of trans women. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you will find links in a pinned comment below with my video on the topic, as well as a more recent one from the YouTuber Sean. And with that out of the way, on with the show.
Oh, please don't blink. If you blink, I'll be able to move, and then I'll have to actually talk about this. Damn it. Village of the Angels, Doctor Who Flux, episode 4. Well, I had expressed a small amount of hope for this episode, actually, when I talked about the last episode, because I noted that the pattern, at least for this first bit of the thing, seemed to be an episode about sort of the major plot, and then a more or less self-contained one that ties in somewhat, and then an episode about the major plot, and then this. I assumed was going to be something closer to episode 2, which I actually liked a fair bit. I had issues. I'm me. I have issues with things I love. So yeah, I had issues with that. But I did enjoy it for the most part. And I had hopes that maybe I would enjoy this. I did not. I mean, honestly, this is going to be rehashing a lot of the things I said in the last review, which is that I can see a few kernels of ideas that could have worked if they were focused on and made more central. But this thing is juggling too much of the main plot and doing it worse than War of the Sontarans did. So this was rough. I held on to hope a decent way into it. And if I'm being completely honest, the way in which the angels are depicted in terms of the actual, shots, the way they move, the setups, the build up, the tension is decently done. It doesn't try and reinvent the wheel with them, rather just find ways to build the appropriate tension around the stuff that we already know the angels do. The angels up to this point have operated primarily on a certain era of mystery. Definitely way back in Blink, and then even in Time of the Angels, that one, had the whole idea of the image of an angel is an angel. And heck, even in Angels in Manhattan, it's like, what are they doing? And there's a little bit of that here, but for the most part, this isn't trying to build up the mystery of the angels anymore, and thankfully doesn't try and add new stuff to them that doesn't make sense. Statue of Liberty. But it does instead try and focus on just, okay, you know how the angels work. Let's just try and execute that well. And again, strictly from the visual, the movement, the being sure that like when lights are flickering in the brief moment that it goes dead, they jump forward. Like it's well done. It's not new anymore. It's not fresh anymore, but it's not badly done. It's competently handled. And if I'm going to be honest, the idea of a rogue angel is kind of an interesting idea in and of itself in the first place. And the idea that it actually took up residence inside this woman's head because she has premonitions, and she had a premonition of an angel, and because in her mind, not even in her eye, in her mind she saw it, it's now there. That's an interesting idea. So, as I said, there's actually some potential in some of the notions that are here. It's squandered potential because ultimately this all amounts to almost nothing. All it seems to do from a practical standpoint is split the Doctor from Yaz and Dan. Other than that, what's going on isn't resolved, really, as a story in and of itself. One assumes that it has to get picked up at least somewhat next time because, you have a planet just kind of hanging out in this weird negative zone kind of situation. That's got to be addressed. So maybe I should be treating this more like the first half of a two-parter, except that doesn't feel right because, again, within this own series, War of the Sontarans managed to be a complete story that it was telling there while also tying into the other stuff. But even within the story it's telling, it's very unsatisfying, at least as we have so far. And yes, I know some people will say, it's not over, you should give it a chance. Like, look, if when the last episode airs, it makes me look back on all this stuff and go, wow, actually, I was wrong, then you know what? When that episode airs, I will say that. But right now, I'm going to talk about my experience right now and not make a prediction about how that'll change depending on the ending. All right? So, first of all, Claire does not appear at present to factor into the overall story. And the way that they've chosen to tie her in is weird and extraneous. So basically, as part of her random premonitions that she apparently has, she at some point had a vision of the Doctor and of angels and of other stuff. And that prompted her in the first episode to just approach this woman she doesn't know and be like, oh yeah, and like act like she knew what was going on when she kind of didn't. It's like made clear that it's like vague things and she doesn't really know what's going on. So like now her performance in the first episode makes no sense. So that now is a very unsatisfying answer to who the heck was that woman? Like, she's a random woman who gets visions. Okay. So what? The rogue angel, while I said it was an interesting idea, ultimately, does it matter to this story that it was a rogue angel? No. Maybe it'll matter next episode. But again, I'm not going to presume that it will. And if it does, and it changes my opinion, I'll say. But within here right now, the whole idea of the rogue angel has no immediate impact. It simply allows the Doctor to communicate with this person. And like, honestly, they could have redone the Angel Bob bit and had the Doctor communicate with the angels in some other way. And I will say this, I am glad that Chibnall remembered that the angels are cruel, because I got very nervous when we had this whole idea of the rogue angel, and part of me was in like when we realized the town itself was like floating in the quantum whatever they said it was, I can't even remember now. But that whole thing, I had a terrifying thought. I'm like, is he going to have it be like the angels are actually good guys and they're like saving this town from the Flux or whatever? And no, he doesn't go there. They are on somebody else's agenda. I'll come back to that. But he doesn't go there. He remembers to not only have them behave, but remembers to point out that they are cruel. They enjoy messing with people. They are hunters by necessity, but also they like it. So, thank you for remembering that. The idea of the young girl seeing her future self was not a terrible one, and it wasn't even that badly executed. Again, it didn't really mean anything because this character, either as the young girl or the old woman, hasn't done anything of note, really. She's just kind of there as flavor. And if this didn't have to juggle all of the overall series stuff, maybe there would have been time to flesh her out and have her feel more like a proper character and have her place in the story feel more necessary. But there isn't space for that. I did kind of like the professor. I like the performance of the professor. The writing of the professor is very actually a lot of the writing is super, super clunky, especially for the Doctor. Like, there was a moment that I feel like I could have clipped out and zeroed in as to why I have a hard time connecting with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. And that is when she is talking to the angel inside Claire's head. And it says how it got here. And I forget what it said. It was technobabble. And the Doctor's question is, how did you do that? And even watching it live, I'm sitting there going, who cares how? The question is why. Why are you asking how? She does eventually ask why, but I'm like, in my mind, the Doctor's first question is why. The Doctor will only ask how if either the Doctor already knows the answer to why, or knows that no answer is forthcoming on that. You don't ask how first, you ask why first. And that just felt off to me. And again, this is not me saying, and therefore she's not the Doctor. Removed from canon, retcon. I mean, no, I'm talking about why I'm having a hard time connecting with her. And that's one more thing to factor in, I guess. So, I mentioned the clunky writing, and like the professor has some very on-the-nose lines. There's a lot of on-the-nose lines for a lot of characters. The Doctor doesn't get to be a character very much. The Doctor is largely just here to shout at other characters to not blink and to figure out what's going on. I don't get much of a sense of how she feels about anything that's going on. She's just kind of mad dashing, and like, I'm not saying the Doctor can't be a little bit unscrutable. They can. They have been. I've liked them that way sometimes. But, you know, I could look at the lines said by and the way that they were said from someone like Tennant, Eccleston, Smith, Capaldi, Tom Baker, Sylvester McCoy, and I could tell you at least a general idea of how the Doctor is feeling about what's going on. And with Whittaker, these lines are so... There's so much narrative clockwork. They're there to explain what's going on to the audience and to explain to the characters who wouldn't have a reason to know how this works. But there's very little flavor in them. And I'm sure some people will say she's been written that way the whole time, and I'm not necessarily going to dispute that, but I don't remember it weighing on the episode the way it weighed on it here. Again, at least for me. So there's that. Can I just say how I don't even know how else to say this. So when the two people who I guess were the guardians, like great uncles or great uncle and aunt, something, the relatives and the guardians of the young girl, they show up back in 1901, which actually once the two of them showed up there and 1901 had been dropped earlier as a time, and I realized, oh, so they're connecting. Ooh, that was one of the brief moments of ooh, that didn't go anywhere. But like, look, it had its moments. They show up again. They get told, you know, don't step in front of the angel. The angel touches them, and this time they die because for some reason this little girl says nobody survives being touched twice. How she knows that, I don't know. But regardless, they both die. And this young girl has a line. It was something along the lines of, he was never nice to me. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, but what about her? His wife just died. She seemed like a nicer person. She seemed fed up with him. One, why did she have to die in the first place? And two, why is there no acknowledgement of that? Why are we just going to focus on this guy written deliberately to be a jerk and have a little kid go, I'm glad he's dead? Okay, but somebody else just died too. Why is she not acknowledging this? Why is the episode not acknowledging this? What? Like, these characters don't care. It shouldn't be bothering me, but it really is. I can even get around the fact that the little girl isn't acknowledging, but it feels like the episode has no acknowledgement. No character has an acknowledgement of the fact that she died too. It just, again, it feels narratively mechanical. There is no use for these characters at this point, so we get rid of both of them. We get rid of them in one fell swoop, and that guy was a jerk, so I'll point that out. Well, yeah, but you just use that as a way to get rid of this other person, and like, you've now done that function, but you're not properly acknowledging what the heck's gone on. I know that's a very minor point to get hung up on, but it's the kind of thing that just irked me all the way through. I started down on this tangent by pointing out that I kind of like the professor. I like the performance given by the actor, and he did a very good job at managing to portray a certain amount of excitement, stoicness. You got a sense of damage from him when he, made moments of standing his ground, but also, you can tell it's this wonderful mix of he's scared, he is trying to be brave, he does have that stubborn streak, but he's also been through a lot, and this scenario is dredging some of that back up for him. I thought the performance was very good. I thought the writing was on him, but I thought the performance was very good. The stuff with Bell and Vinder, it just kind of plugs along. Until we know what Azul and Swarm want all those people in Passenger for, it kind of has no meaning. Because it gives us no new information. We knew that's how Passenger was used already. I think the only practical thing it showed was that it actually showed the damage that the previous episode only talked about to the universe as a whole. So, there was a line from that guy on the planet. He's like, we've got, 2/3 of a sun, 1/4 of a moon, and half a planet. It's the best we've got. So, moments like that and actually seeing the visuals of it, that did kind of serve a function a little bit. But other than that, there isn't, for how much screen time that section got, I don't know what we gained from that. And yes, I know, again, some people say wait till the end. It's a mess. And so let's circle back on the fact that the Weeping Angels are working for the Division. The Division has now become possibly at least one of the top 3 worst offenders for a season arc premise, which is that they just slap the name on whatever is going on to make it seem relevant. I'll be able to tell you at the end of this whether or not it's actually worse than the Hybrid, which is my current absolute worst series arc or mystery or whatever that Doctor Who has done. But it's giving it a run for its money right now. Because it keeps being brought up as if it's something we're supposed to be afraid of, but we don't know what it does. Not really. We don't know why. We don't know to what end. So, as much as the show can act like, oh, we know the Division is scary, we really only have this thing's word for that. The scope of it just keeps expanding. Because initially, as introduced back with Fugitive of the Jadoon, this was something that seemed to be a Time Lord thing. And now it's something that recruits anybody and everybody and knows everything and controls everything, and now I don't care. I barely care before, I really don't care now. These kinds of overwritten, overpowerful, they are pulling all the strings and controlling, I never buy it. Whether it's a single person or an organization, I never, ever buy it. Nobody has that much control. And if they do, that is a boring scenario. I have no interest in that. Unless you're going to tie it to a real world situation. It's a bit like, it's a bit like whenever the stakes get so big, the whole universe is gonna explode. I'm like, well, now, I'm taken out of it because you made it too big. I actually kind of detach from it. I can't relate to that. When you take this villainous organization that is so huge and massive, it can even recruit something like the Weeping Angels to work for it. I don't buy it, and I don't care. It's like Spectre when they tried to tell us that not only was Blofeld James Bond's secret brother, but that he had been the secret mastermind behind the completely disparate plots of the previous 3 movies. And it's like, no. You're trying to make this big and threatening, and I just don't buy it at all. And that's kind of where I'm at with the Division at this point, too. So whatever enjoyment I might have had out of the more isolated scenario of the Angels in this situation and some of the neat ideas involved in that, by tying them so directly to the Division and giving us just a painful cliffhanger. I mean, I've said that almost every time. I don't like Doctor Who cliffhangers. If you do, great. I don't in general. Even when they're in stories I like, I usually don't like Doctor Who cliffhangers. But by the time this was done, I had to really stop and think about why I had ever thought that maybe it was going to be good this time. And I did think of that, and I mentioned some of the stuff, some of the executions with the angels, some of the core ideas, some of the performances. It's not completely devoid of quality. It's just all put in service of a story that doesn't seem to be going to a destination so much as accumulating more stuff as it rolls down the hill. And eventually it's just going to smash into something at the bottom and make a big mess. I would like to be proven wrong. I know there are some people who say I went into this wanting to hate it. I never want to hate Doctor Who. I want to love Doctor Who. And I would like nothing more than for the last episode of this to come out and for me to go, I was wrong. It all makes sense. It all ties together. It was all done the way it should have been. I would love nothing more than to have that happen, but I'm not going to hold my breath expecting it. Village of the Angels. What did you think about it? It sort of left me more bummed out than actively angry, personally. Because it leaves me in a position where I'm left feeling that War of the Sontarans was probably just a fluke, something that I liked. And I should just accept that that's going to be it. We'll see. Again, I want to be wrong. I really do. Whatever your thoughts are on this, drop them down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Usual stuff, all the likes, subscribes, and etc. They do help me out. But I won't put too much pressure on you for that. Because at the end of the day, you are the council. I just run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. Hey, if you're sticking around through the credits, might as well hear some names read out. My Patreon helps support this, and in particular, I want to thank Raven McBain, Bookworm, MJ, Tracy Scrabbit, Vincent Paul Bartolucci, Kaylin Schwartz, Edalyn, Robin Moore, Ross Schultz, Shayla Gourlay. Want to hear me mispronounce your name? Check out the rewards on the Patreon.